Hi, everyone. Welcome to, what day is it? February 16th?
16.
EDIC meeting. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of open meeting law and the March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that can gather in one place, this meeting of the Easthampton Development and Industrial Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A recording will be made available via Easthampton Media. So, I'd like to remind everybody that EDIC's mission is to support and enhance the economic environment for current and future businesses, residents, and the community at large. That is why we are here today. So, first on our agenda is to approve January 19th, 2021's meeting minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Oh, here's Casey. Here he comes.
I'm sorry you got them so late, Gwen. I forgot that I took you off my list.
It's truly okay. It was plenty of time. Let's see if we can get Casey in here and then we'll talk about this, I suppose. Everybody's had a chance to review them, etc.
Yes.
While we're waiting, does anyone have any edits?
Say again, Josh?
I said, while we were waiting for Casey, does anyone have any edits?
Looks good.
Cool.
Looks good to me.
I make a motion to approve the minutes then from our January meeting.
I'll make a second.
Okay, so all in favor of approving January 19th, 2021 meeting minutes, please, when I say your name, tell me yay or nay. I'm just gonna do it this way. Mo.
Yay.
Tom.
Yay.
Chris.
Yay.
Josh.
Yay!
Cassie.
Yay.
Paul.
Yay.
Hooray. Casey.
Yay.
Marvelous. Oh, Savannah has entered the waiting room. Is that a name we should know?
Public speak.
Could be, just in time. I'd like to give this person an opportunity to come in. Hello, Savannah?
Unmute.
Yeah, they appear to be on mute.
Hi there. My name is Whitney Chickwin, actually. Savannah is my daughter's name. We've had to use it before for school.
Well, great. It's nice to have you here, Whitney. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. My kids are in the background, so hopefully they're, occupied, but I do apologize ahead of time if they make a little ruckus.
That's how life is right now. Thanks for letting us know. So
Yes.
you've actually arrived in the perfect time because it is
good.
public speak time. And we have been forewarned that you might be coming to talk with us.
Yeah. So my parents own the Silver Spoon. They are away right now and they actually are not good at technology. So they wanted me to just hop on to express our interest in doing the outdoor dining again, come nicer weather. It was a really, really great thing for us to be able to do, business-wise especially. And I think with COVID and everything, a lot of people aren't really comfortable yet eating indoors. So if it's definitely something that could be done again, we would be very grateful for that.
Great. Thank you. And so everybody here knows this pertains to some of our ongoing conversations about how we support local businesses to stay vital as the pandemic persists. Paul and Cassie have done some outreach to restaurants throughout town to find out their level of interest in outdoor dining and get some thoughts on if anybody has like creative thoughts about how you might do that near your establishment, those sorts of things. So we've got some preliminary ideas to share with our consultant who will be helping us with our local rapid recovery plan. Is that the name of our consultant person, Jeff? Do you want to say more about that, you or Paul or Cassie?
I mean, I'd be Paul, I'd be curious to ask Paul, so maybe you and Cassie together, but you guys did some outreach to quite a few business owners. And I mean, I think it'd be a good summary while Whitney's on the call to just hear what other, especially the restaurants, but other businesses, kind of what the response was. Do you want to talk about that, Paul or Cassie?
Paul, I defer to you.
Are you okay?
All the head work on this, or leg work.
All right, thanks. Paul, are you okay with that? You seem okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can. So I was able to reach out to a number of businesses. I have feedback. Some people didn't have a lot of time, and some people talked my ear off. So it's good. So I guess I could go down the list. I don't know, I sent it to Jeff, but I talked with the Glory of India. The owner there was definitely interested in doing outdoor dining, but needs help, may need help financially to do that. I don't know. The first thing he asked was how much it would cost. Said that business is pretty tough for them right now. Spoke with the owner of Lavera Cruzana, who also is part of the Poke Bowl, and they were very interested in using the space by the senior center. They have a really nice space there that could fit a lot of tables, and that would serve a lot of those actual restaurants on that Union Street, just as an idea. But anyway, they're interested in doing outdoor dining. Spoke to Shelburne Falls. I talked to the manager there. They're also interested in expanding their presence outdoors. They gave me a phone number for the owners, but it was like a corporate mailbox, and nobody ever got back to me. I spoke to the owner of Pizza House. This was an interesting fellow. He's 78 or 79 years old. He's in his late 70s. He started the business when he was a teenager. He's been doing it for about 50 years. He's very interested in expanding outdoor dining. He needs help. His business is real tough right now. He is open to any suggestions that we would have or anybody from the city would have. If people want to go there and walk his stuff and give him advice, he's really open and really receptive to anything we can do. He mentioned that he has like 2 tables, I think, in the front of his business and a couple tables in the back. And because of, what he said, because of like restrictions on serving alcohol, he's able to serve to the front 2 tables, but not to any of the tables in the back. And he just said it was complicated, but that was something notable. He said that he used to carry a whole bunch of different beers, including from local breweries, and he doesn't have any of those now. He's down to like 1 beer on tap. And he's also very reluctant to do any indoor dining because he himself, he doesn't want to, get COVID, and doesn't want his employees to get COVID. And, he's elderly, so he really doesn't want to do it. So he's struggling. He really wants help. Also on Union Street, I spoke with the owner of Easthampton EDIC. They have some outdoor dining, and it's very successful for them, but they said that they definitely want to do more. They would love to expand it, and that it would help them in their business a lot to be able to do that. Then on Cottage Street, I spoke with the owner of Daily Operation. He was interested, but also said that his spot's kind of tough. And so he really would like to do more and would like to have an outdoor dining presence, but wasn't sure what we'd be able to do because of like the street situation in front of him. So he'd be interested to see what kind of proposals or what kind of ideas there might be. I spoke to the owner of the Water Spine, and I got a lot of feedback from her. She doesn't do any indoor dining because she's also an older woman and doesn't want to get COVID, so she's covered all of her tables with merchandise. And she had a really good December, she said, because a lot of people came in to purchase gifts, but that at this point there's really not any business left, or it's all very, very minimal business for her. I guess behind her shop, there's a whole bunch of broken up asphalt that is tricky to walk on. It's just real damaged, really old asphalt. And she would love to put a deck or something back there to be able to put some seating. But because she abuts Nashwanak Pond, she feels that to go through the process of going through like the environmental, like, commission or committee or whatever she has to do, that's just too complicated. And so she's not able to do that, because it would be putting wood stakes into the ground. But she said that if they were somehow able, she suggested possibly putting tables out at the boardwalk or something like that. That would be really useful to her kind of customers. She had 2 tables in the front of her shop that she removed when the outbreak hit because they were kind of close to the entrance, and she didn't want people feeling uncomfortable, people sitting there and then other people being too close trying to walk in. But she does have a couple tables, she said, still out in the back or on the side of her restaurant that people can sit on, but it's not a lot. And that business is not great, and she needs growth, and she wants us to keep it posted. I talked to Mount Tom's Ice Cream. The manager there was interested in it and believed the owner would be as well in doing some more outdoor seating. But I emailed the owner, and I didn't get a response back from him. I talked to Sevens, and they were not interested. They said they don't have space. And that was it, really, real brief. And I reached out to a number of other ones, but I wasn't able to connect with anybody else. So that's what I got for you today.
It's a large amount. Thanks very much for that work, Paul. Appreciate it.
Paul, I did reach out to Nini's and to Amy's place, but couldn't get through. Couldn't reach the folks.
Thank you, Cassie. Yeah.
So the idea of taking up parking spaces and sidewalk spaces are tricky for sure. One of the things that I just looked at real quick is there's an alleyway between Mount Tom's and what used to be the Pony. Could we take that alleyway and make that public dining for people from the Water's Edge and Daily Op? And same thing with Verrazan. There's that alleyway and the bistro. There's that alleyway between the gym. And then, is there any way that we could close that down? I know that they're not heavily used alleys to make public seating. It sort of ties in a little bit of the concept that I said to you before, Gwen, about potentially shuttle buses. If we take some potential parking away, that we figure out some way to transfer people from either Payson Avenue parking, Easthampton Savings Bank parking, the mill parking, to have a little bit of way to deal with the loss of parking, and a sense that people could go someplace, find a place to park in Easthampton, hop on a shuttle bus, and then go to the Cottage Street or go to the Mill District. It's certainly complicated, but if we do set up certain zones for the public to feel like they can get to-go food and then walk half a block to a shared outdoor space, would be certainly, I think, easier than more concrete blocks. But I know that the Spoon is a little different, that their concrete block setup wasn't a ton of seats, but it was good for them. Efficiency. They were filled most of their rush hours. And I think it was 2 spots or 3 spots. So that one sort of worked, but I don't think Cottage Street or Union Street would work. So that's where the other 2 alleyways or potentially other spots that we could say, yeah, we give up a couple of parking spots, but we get 30, 40 seats for outdoor dining.
Gwen, do you mind? So Paul, I wanted to thank you. That was a lot of outreach that you did. I think it's great that you started those conversations, those people. That's huge. While Whitney's on the call, I wanted to ask, if it's okay, Gwen, to ask Whitney, I think I had kind of 2 questions to help. If Whitney, if you're still on, if you can help us talk about.
I am.
You guys did, my understanding is that you guys talked to a couple of the, the property owners or the space, the people who occupy the spaces next to you. Can you just talk a little bit about what you did to talk to your neighbors? And then the other question I had for you was, maybe without being super specific, but could you kind of talk about the cost of the blocks that what kind of costs did you guys have to bear to put out the barriers last season?
She's muted.
Oh, Yep.
Whitney, you're muted if you're talking to us.
No, I'm so sorry. Jeff, you kind of cut out. I think my internet had like a little blip in it. So I didn't get any of what you said, Jeff. I'm sorry.
All right. It's a good thing I'm not
sorry.
It's a good thing I'm not long-winded, right?
Okay.
Just, I was kind of curious what outreach you guys did with your neighbors, the people, the property owners, the tenants right next to you guys, and then
Yep.
without, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but like, can you just generally describe like how much costs? Like, did you think it was really expensive to put out the barriers versus what you felt like you might have gained from having the patrons out there?
Right. So, we did talk with Antonio's. We have a really good relationship with them, and they were totally fine. There was no issue with them. They were, totally supportive. And then we kind of lucked out because it's pretty much vacant. If you're standing at our front door looking out to the road, to the right of us is vacant. All of the spots where like we had our tables on the sidewalk, that was all vacant. And yeah, I mean, most of the parking spots that are filled, for an extended period of time are actually like the Antonio's delivery drivers. So they just kind of had to park in the back. But we didn't run into any issues with, people complaining about a lack of parking. So that was really nice. And then we also lucked out because my mom's cousin owns Dietz Construction, and so he helped us out with the barriers, getting the barriers set up. And I don't know specifically like what the price of everything was, but I know he was, generous. And then we purchased, I believe it was 4 picnic tables from Home Depot, and I want to say they were maybe $100 each. So what we spent in order to make that happen, was nothing compared to what we actually were able to generate revenue wise, because we had that outdoor dining.
That's helpful. Yeah, I'd never really heard those details, so I appreciate you sharing that.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
And Gwen, again, I hope you know, I'm not trying to like run this conversation, but I noticed a couple things of when Casey was talking and what Paul described as some of the people who have needs. I think I wanted to bring this to the committee because last time Silver Spoon reached out kind of directly and it was really fast. And I know that this group had talked about this, but it was a really fast acting kind of thing where the mayor created that order that basically allowed the conversion of parking. And then it was a kind of a real short, like couple questions that we came up with for people to submit. And the Silver Spoon was the only one we kind of narrowed it to Main Street to make it manageable. What I was going to say is that every nuanced question, or as we advance these ideas, they all grow in complexity and time. So what we have in front of us is the ability to take the things that are in the public way. So if you think Union Street as like a straight shot, the city has control over some portions of the sidewalks and the parking spaces. So that's where the mayor has, like in the example case would be the mayor could have the authority to put out an order that we could allow those spaces to be used. The idea of alleys or private property is different. So that would be something where you'd have to have those property owners agree and the city's kind of out, except we could say it's okay, but it's not something that the city could really do a lot to facilitate. So there's the part of what I was kind of scoping is, are there places that would be interested kind of to act quickly? I mean, that's one of the things, like we're going to be in season pretty soon. And the idea of putting barriers out to convert a couple parking spaces at a time, that's kind of probably the easiest thing that could happen. And then from there, it just goes up like a scale of complexity and time. We ran into questions about the food court and creating opportunities for a food court, and I think there are some health regulations that, you can't really have a server that's too far away from the establishment, and then the other one is alcohol. So there are quite a few things to iron out as you get more complex or creative about going a little further from the establishment.
Mo,
Yeah.
Mo, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I just wanted to, Jeff, you bring up a good point that, some of those, for instance, regarding private property, and just to give you a sense, the chamber actually owns half of the sidewalk in front of us. So the question then becomes, obviously we don't have an issue with people using that sidewalk, but it becomes a liability thing. And if something were to happen, like who is responsible for that, and who, liability question.
Yeah, I think liability is the question. Yeah. Yeah. And then, I saw Union Street and Cottage Street were different. When we got approached by Silver Spoon, Main Street has a couple of unique characteristics. So like the nose in parking is one of them. And it's pretty wide. There were initial concerns about Union Street and Cottage Street because you have the cars traveling and then you have the parking spaces right next to it. So, one of the ideas to get around that was same idea. The parking space is a kind of a key area, and then the Jersey barrier separates the parking space from the cars. But one take on this whole thing was if you sent pedestrians to walk into the parking area, so they would step off the curb or hit a ramp, and they would walk where the parking space is, and then that would put the diners on the sidewalk. And so it would give that separation from the dining, feeling like you're sitting right on the street. And that was the police department had a lot of concerns about Union Street in particular, because it's pretty, in Cottage Street's the same. The cars go kind of fast and they're just very close. And I think that's where Silver Spoon and Main Street had a unique characteristic where there happens to be a light there. So cars are slowing down in most cases to stop. So there are a lot of factors that have to get considered. I'll yield now to.
And one of the bigger factors to talk about Main Street is that we have fewer occupied buildings than vacant buildings, whereas Union and Cottage Street they're almost 100% full. So everybody wants access to their storefront, whereas I've got two huge lots next to me which are vacant, and she across the street has got half the block is vacant. So obviously apples and oranges between Cottage and Union, and Cottage and Union unfortunately is just too narrow, and I really think that's a mistake to lose the pedestrian feel that those two neighborhoods have. So I think we need a different solution other than blocking sidewalks and parking spaces for Union and Cottage.
Cassie?
Yeah, I'd like to speak to the Cottage Street area because it's so much more dense in terms of occupancy. And I would like to, I'm going to hang in there on that food court idea and not think of it as a place where you buy your food, but where you bring your food and create an attractive environment, nice to sit out at night, join some friends, and just create, bring it there type environment.
When?
Tom, do you want to talk?
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's an opportunity, and I haven't thought about it. I'm just responding off of Casey's suggestion, to do some, some of that little bistro lighting and stuff like in Northampton. Is it Pulaski Park that they have this like little kind of very Euro looking sort of thing going on, which is really perhaps attractive and doable.
Yeah, Tom?
I would just hope we could, one of the reasons we're talking about this in February instead of May or June is to look at all of the possibilities. And I know Paul put a lot of work into this whole traffic rerouting thing, but personally, and Jeff is muted, so I can't hear him swearing at me, but personally, I'd love to look at something much bigger. And then as we get forced into something smaller, so be it, as opposed to starting small. I'd love to see something as creative as Cottage and Union becoming one way, and we use half of that street to let the dining come out. So when I come into Easthampton, I can come down Cottage, I can drive up Union, but I don't know how many folks ever have an opportunity this past summer to go to Hyannis. Hyannis is a pretty big tourist pedestrian. They literally put Jersey barriers down the entire length of their main street, and all of the restaurants spilled out right into the street with their tables. I appreciate what Silver Spoon did, but the last thing we want to do to a lot of these businesses is expect them to pick up the cost. Again, maybe the city can't either, but and again, maybe that's way out there, but if we start looking at little tiny spots, we're going to be asking these businesses to make a fairly significant investment for a very small return. So if Casey can only get 5 or 6 more tables out there, I don't know how much that's going to help. If La Vera Cruzana or Glory of India gets 4 or 5 tables out there, I don't know how much that's going to help. But if they could spill out and put out 10 or 15 tables, and again, it probably takes an act of God to do that with Union and Cottage, but there's plenty of streets to reroute traffic around without hurting a ton of businesses. I mean, sad to say, but I don't want to disagree with Casey too much, but there aren't too many left on Union Street other than the restaurants, with Manchester's gone. So, traffic could go up Payson, traffic could go around Maple Street, coming into town. It's a big undertaking, but I know Paul's got 90% of it done with the map that he had laid out.
I think it's a great idea, and I just want everyone to be on the same page that when it got broached, like kind of last year, it's a no-go in a lot of people's eyes, and I don't see us getting past the people who said no, kind of flat out. Like, I don't see us getting past that. And that's why I kind of think we ratcheted it down to something like I'm not even convinced that taking parking spaces has been accepted. It certainly was a flashpoint, like it's a flashpoint on Cottage Street about taking those parking spaces. So I appreciate everyone the one-way idea, but it's like the traffic flow through Easthampton and the number of vehicles, it would be an undue burden on other neighborhoods. I think the idea of like alleys or back parking lots or other areas that are not the main streets, I think that is still an opportunity. And I think, I throw out the municipal lot in the middle of Cottage Street, like, that's the idea. That would be one of the places for a food court potential. And even that has gotten really mixed reviews because then people want to park there. So I just wanted to, I think it's a great idea, but I'm not the person who makes that decision. But when it got broached, there was a lot of people who just didn't want that conversation to go too far because it's very unwieldy.
So I'd like Paul to have a chance to respond, and then Casey.
Okay. Yeah, so I do relate to the idea is a pretty out there idea. And I am surprised and I appreciate your comments, Tom. I do want to point out that a couple different business owners had asked if we could open up the parking lot over at Maple Street School and put signage out there. Because it's just sitting there, it's empty, it's unused. We don't even have students there right now, and that would help, just a lot of businesses there, at least on that end of the street. And also, if we look at Cottage, I realize the loss of parking is not great. If we eliminated, there's parking on both sides of the street, and if loss of parking weren't an issue, you could still greatly expand out presence on the side that has all the restaurants and still have 2 lanes of traffic, but you would lose the parking on the other side, which probably isn't acceptable. But there are other ways to look at it that could be workable if we had the initiative to do it. Oh, and the other thing I was going to say is one of the pushbacks last year, and the reasons that it was said that it couldn't be done, was because of the detour on Ferry Street, which is no longer there because of the big trucks. So that was the kind of the thing that immediately said, no, this can't happen, and that now is not the case.
Okay. I have one minute point of information before you go, Casey. Maple School is currently largely unoccupied, And my understanding is that Easthampton schools are planning to ramp up having kids back in schools by mid-April. So I don't know if that changes how people are thinking. And don't quote me on mid-April. I'm just monitoring some things that my friends are saying. I've not been paying attention, but that is my understanding. If anybody has more detailed information than that, that's just worth knowing. Casey.
Okay, just look at an example of what happened with Northampton, and believe me, I'm all for restaurants being like bailed out, but all the other retailers who felt like now their customers weren't going to travel to Northampton to buy their goods and services. They couldn't get to their front door. They couldn't park anywhere. So on one hand, we're throwing a bone to the restaurants, but in the meantime, how are the other retail businesses, Wonderland and whatnot, that all of a sudden, they might have more foot traffic, but they don't have, people might say like, can't go there. That it's a nightmare. It's one way. I missed my exit. So Northampton retailers jumped onto it, and I think it was premature on their part to give it a try, but they were fighting for the continuance of their parking for their customers. So on one hand, while it may seem like we're doing a generous thing for one industry, where it could be hurting another industry. So part of the question might be is, great, you asked the restaurants, but how do the other retailers feel about the potential change?
I mean, one thing, Gwen, do you mind? One thing that is optimism, because I feel like we need a quick boost of optimism here, is that 50 Payson Ave is one. If we all start to kind of put our minds together in things that we have control of, or where we know there's willingness to help and look, I would really, if we look at 50 Payson, it's really it could be kind of a similar example of where we do have the authority to potentially convert portions of 50 Payson into something that's not parking. And there's a willingness there. And so we did get funded for the Mass DOT winter grant program. So, last year through ECA and basically Pascalina helped, the arts coordinator helped create this place where 50 Payson would get converted to sort of a venue space. If you imagine 50 Payson with picnic tables, out there, and it becomes that food court, that is one of the clearer options. Whereas Maple Street, I think school obviously will not be in session in the summer, but I think there are some there's some ADA issues, getting someone in a wheelchair to the back of Maple Street School. It's not designed for that. It doesn't meet those code requirements, but 50 Payson does, and there's handicapped accessible parking spaces and that kind of thing. So it's not that all is lost if we come up with the idea of a food court kind of thing. And one of the things that the other consultant that we'll work with soon, that's one of the things that they can help us with, is we really need a team effort to figure out what regulations or what things do we need to allow. I think the biggest hurdle and the biggest thing that I heard looking at the food court option was, how could we get people to be able to bring alcohol there? And I don't mean to make that super important, because it's about food, but it's also about being able to bring, an unopened, beverage there. That would really sort of coalesce a lot of the things that you get like behind the breweries. You can get food trucks and they can have alcohol, and it really is a draw. So those are the things that we could potentially, be working on in the next month or two to maybe be ready for the summer, or something. So
I saw Mo's hand and then Tom.
So I just want to echo what Casey brought up. And although I haven't gotten any direct feedback, I am aware, and I do know that there are some other chambers who have gotten feedback about the whole supporting just one sector perception. And some other chambers have had to deal with that. So I just wanted to put that out there. I have not yet gotten any of that feedback, but I am aware and sensitive to that. So just FYI.
Thanks, Mo. Tom?
I just think, with all due respect to Jeff's optimism, I'll throw some pessimism at him. I don't know that I see people going somewhere in Easthampton and buying a meal and then taking it to 50 Payson. Maybe a pizza, maybe, but I don't know that I'm going to go into La Veracruzana and take my meal down to 50 Payson. It just, maybe it would work. I think if you put a bunch of picnic tables out there, you're going to see people stopping in there with picnic lunches as they're walking either to the park or wherever, or walking the boardwalk. You know how we are with parking. If we can't park right in front of the business, we have a parking problem. People literally want to buy their food and walk outside and sit down at the table right in front of, the classic one in town I think of is Easthampton Diner, as Paul mentioned. You literally can sit outside, they'll come out, take your order, bring your food out. I think that's the concept the restaurants are trying to get, like the Silver Spoon. I can sit down, give my order, bring my food to me at that table. And again, I don't know, maybe we're just stuck because of our constraints on these narrow main streets, but maybe we're going to have to go small and do it like the Silver Spoon did, where each individual business will try their own thing.
I think there are possibilities that this is a both and situation that we try for, but Cassie and Paul both have thoughts to share. Cassie, you go first.
Question for you, Jeff. If we were to do the Payson Avenue lot, would we be able to install, dare I say, ambiance, like the fancy lights and trees and blah, blah, to make it look nice, or would it just feel like eating at Home Depot?
Well, for the winter grant that we got through Mass DOT, I think there will be some of that, but there is a challenge, even with the most optimism I can bust out here, is that it's not a permanent setup unless there's a section, there could be a section of 50 Payson that gets cordoned off and set up for that purpose for the summer, like as an example. Otherwise, it would be set up and deconstruct like for the week and then yeah, that's a lot of legwork. So yeah, no, it's a good question. I did not get that far.
No.
A lot of communities did get some grant funding to do that. For the Mass DOT one, the ECA is getting some infrastructure to make this a sustainable thing. So they got a stage and a portable PA system so that they could have the ability to produce an event. So that one is a little bit more event oriented, where they could have an art display or a band play and have people come. So that's kind of another iteration of it, would be to set up something with ambiance.
I read in your application that you were thinking of a website to promote buying local products from local merchants. If we were to do a relatively large hoo-ha around that for storekeepers, would that help reduce the restaurant storekeeper conflict?
Are you speaking of the pilot, the rapid? I can't even remember what grant we're talking about anymore, Jeff. But it's the rapid something or another that Jeff and
the local rapid recovery one that's specific to COVID.
Yeah, we put the Chambers project in there. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was our project that we're trying to figure out and get going. And now that I've got that clear in my head, Casey, what was your question? I'm sorry. Oh, a perception of, well, I think so. Yep.
Yeah, like, look, we're doing this big thing for you guys and we're doing this big thing for restaurants.
Right. And so, yes, I do think that. And I also want to just kind of comment also about Tom's concern about people bringing their food to a location. And I think that if there was education around, or a marketing campaign around, hey, yay, we have this space, I think people would get excited about it. And I think if we set the parameters and the expectation, I think we could minimize some of, and I don't think that's a bad thing either, people bringing their picnics there. But the other thing that I was thinking of is that people are really yearning for community. And I think that's such a basic instinct within human beings that I think that kind of overrides. And I think it would be a new fun thing for people to bring their dish from Galaxy and then their dish from, daily operation or what have you. And now they have a larger community. So that's my thought about that. Did I answer your question, Casey?
You sure did. I like that. I like your thought.
And to continue on your discussion about ambiance, I mean, just look at 50 Payson Avenue. So there's a lot of seating in front of the building and a lot in the side.
Oh,
Same picnic table concept. People that I'm talking to in the industry feel like the spring is going to be huge. We're worried about too much business. Amy at Tavern on the Hill, that people want to socialize. People are tired of cooking their own food. People want to be out. So I think if we could just, like, not necessarily full court food courts, but outdoor dining spots where people, Jim's package store, would they allow a couple of tables to be out there? We got to figure out the liability issue, and, insurance, they're always going to get more than their share. But if we could figure out spaces where people, maybe there's no alcohol, you know what I mean? Maybe people can deal, but you know what I mean? I think we have enough creative, nice outdoor spaces.
And I think it's part of the whole, educational campaign sort of thing. Instead of calling it a food court, you call it, I don't know, Europe in Easthampton, or, some sort of different thing that gives it another feel, right?
Al fresco dining.
Right.
Oh, you're up.
I think very pointing to me.
Go ahead.
Yes.
It's your turn.
So I just want to say, like, I understand the concern about losing parking for sure, especially for businesses that are non-restaurants. I did speak to the owner of In Spirit Crystals, just so I know they're a random one, and they were concerned about losing parking spots, but they were definitely in favor of opening up the school parking lot as a substitute and said that would be great. But the other thing that I just want to say is that, like, part of, and it touches on what Mo is talking about, what a lot of people are saying, is that people do miss that feeling of community. And if you have this outdoor dining experience, people are going to go there and they're going to patronize not just the restaurants, but the other stores there as well. And if we have none of it, then everybody's going to other communities to go outdoor dining and spending money all of those other places. If you went downtown Easthampton last summer, it was like a ghost town. And so I wonder how any of the businesses did, because there's no energy. There was nothing alive. There was, and if we're able to make something happen, where we have, where we can bring that community back, like Casey said, people are raring to go. Like, people want to be out. They miss each other, So I think there's going to be net gain for all of the businesses involved if we get more bodies downtown.
I almost think if we put more energy into everybody getting vaccinated, that would be better than putting, barriers up anywhere.
I'm on the list.
So, Gwen, I didn't mean, I think this is a great discussion. I think it's good because we got the local rapid recovery grant, and we're going to have a consultant who's going to want to hear this. And I think this kind of is like a preview discussion of what we can express to them that we want to figure out in short order. If you don't, I don't know if, I'm guessing you want to shift gears pretty soon. And I don't know if there's anything else we wanted to ask Whitney from Silver Spoon, and because the rest of this I'm sure she doesn't want to hear, but
yeah, Whitney, I am interested to know if you have any particular responses to what you've heard or anything else you'd like us to keep in our minds as we think about this and prepare to have conversations with this consultant.
Sure. Yeah, I think that it was really nice to hear that there were other restaurants interested in doing the outdoor dining. I do think there's some really good ideas that are being tossed around. And yeah, I definitely agree on people just want to get back out and get some sense of normalcy and, socialization and stuff like that. And I feel like with more outdoor dining, people feel a lot safer than they do indoor dining. And so, yeah, I think it's really, really good for the businesses. And I do think that, if people are coming out to, eat breakfast outside or, grab lunch somewhere in town, that they are more apt to say, hey, let's go check out that store, So I do think it would generate more business overall for the town. And I do agree with the statement made about if we're not offering it, people are going to go to the next town over or to who is offering it. So yeah, I think there's some really great ideas going around, and I hope that, it'll be able to be continued into this season.
Thanks for being here to share that with us and
Yeah.
lend your support to that campaign.
And before
Yeah,
you go,
absolutely. Thank you so much. Yep.
one more thing, and Gwen, I apologize in advance, but so I was just kind of rethinking this through, and it's important for me to express this to this group because I think there's things that we can easily control, and then there's the things that are going to be a lot harder and going to take a lot of time. But so one thought process I'm having at the moment is, we kind of created an opportunity for businesses on Main Street to apply to put in a request to convert a couple parking spaces. And that is something that the city has in our control and our ability is we could open up the opportunity to businesses on Union Street and Cottage Street as well as Main Street if they want to submit a plan to convert, and I am thinking like there's nose in parking spaces. So it's maybe there's 3 or 4 of those, or on Union and Cottage, they're parallel spaces. So like you could submit an application for up to 2 spaces and we would have to review it and look, but that would at least give the businesses who want to try it an opportunity to submit a plan, to DPW and police to make sure it would work. And at least that's something that we can do is at least create the opportunity. And it's important because the mayor has the authority to create that executive order to create that. Like you could apply to convert, up to 2 parking spaces or something. So that's something that's kind of easy that the city could do if the business wanted to try it. So I'm really thinking that step 1, that could happen in businesses. It does take a little bit of resources, but they could do it. And then the next level up is like, what else could we do as a city to help support or create something kind of unique on behalf of the city? So I was really thinking about that because in the next couple of weeks to a month, if the city wanted to take an action, it would be to at least allow an entity to try it. And then we could get that going, and then we could kind of work on some of these details. So I'm just trying to break it apart in my mind, but I just want to say that while Whitney's on the phone, because I think, that's where we ended up with Silver Spoon is like, here, you could apply and we'll look at a plan and we'll assess it and make sure it works. But okay, that's all.
Real quick, I promise.
Okay.
Jeff, what that sparked for a thought though is if you look at the section, maybe some restaurants could get together. So if you look at from where the water spine is to the daily operation, that's virtually all eating establishments. They could potentially make that one, as opposed to making it, 4 or 5 separate, barriers. They could potentially make that one barrier for that whole section of Cottage Street.
Yeah, it's that balance between your business might want the space to be something else, and then you want that parking space. So it's just kind of something that Silver Spoons is. They went and they talked to the abutting property owners, which I think somehow that's a factor. Yeah, I think if there's coordination and support, like blocking off a couple parking spaces and serve a multiple purpose, that'd be ideal. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, great. Whitney, again, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And I will say, as a neighbor, it didn't affect parking during the daytime at all to have those spaces taken.
Okay, perfect. That's great to hear. Thank you. I'll definitely relay that to my parents for sure.
Thanks, y'all. Appreciate you, Whitney.
Okay, thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Can I just say one quick public speak?
Yes.
Just that if you have time to look at Paul's telecom report, because it is a thing of beauty and interest and does great jobs explaining all the different kinds of technology. If only for that, it's a great document. So that's all.
And how many pages is it?
It's about 400.
I know. I read some of it.
It has a gorgeous table of contents. I could not ask for more. Mwah. Okay, so J-Bag, it's your turn to update us regarding planning department. Do you have stuff in particular you want us to know?
I realized that that was a long conversation. I think it's a really important conversation. That's the only reason I kind of was belaboring it. And I want this committee to be involved this time. The last time it was just so fast with the conversion on Main Street. So we got a notice of award for the local rapid recovery project. And so I just wanted to reiterate that we're not getting money, but we're getting a consultant to come to Easthampton and help, establish kind of what are the issues as a result of COVID, what are the needs of businesses, and then what can we create for kind of like short-term, medium-term, and longer-term action items. And so we don't know who the consultant is yet, but Mo, in terms of the chamber, is kind of it's the city and the chamber as partners. But I think one of the first things is the consultant's going to need to like debrief and get information, and that's where I really want to have all of this group involved in that. And a lot of things we've already been discussing, I think, are going to come up. We kind of created a short list of things that we would see happening, and I think, Blueprint Easthampton, which Casey Corsello gave the information on last time as part of that. This kind of idea of what can we do real quick, outdoor dining, what can we do to get people back in the Easthampton, that's super important. And then there's the longer term thing. So I guess I don't really know how this is going to work. I did hear that they elongated the process. So originally it was going to be super rapid, which, that's hard, seeing as how we don't even know who the consultant is at this point. But I just wanted to put a plug in for this group to be part of that. And so, it might be another meeting or something that you'd get invited to and get asked to come and share kind of your thoughts. And I think the discussion we just had, I think is pretty informative. And the work that Paul did, that's the idea, is like we need to know a little bit more about what do our businesses actually need. That's one big thing. And then what can we actually do? Like we can't just give out gobs of money, but we can do other things. And so we need to figure that out. So I don't have much else at this point, but that's going to be coming up. I think that's a really important project for this group and for others to be part of. So that's my only update.
Well, I got a brief update from Pasqualina. I saw her at the art store today, and she said that they're getting grant money. One of the things is she's got time available now that she's not doing art walk and whatnot, that she's getting little chunks of grant money from various arts organizations to be able to hand out to artists. And the artist grants that they gave out before created program and content. So I think that there's going to be a lot of happenings throughout the cities, and that's a way for businesses to sort of piggyback and take advantage of. So I think that's one thing that the planning department through ECA is being successful at, as far as putting money in hands of people who are going to be outdoor performing or doing visual arts that will create content for people to be out and about in the community.
Yeah, I agree. And we got the funding to convert 50 Payson. So the idea, just so you know, is it's funding for 5 events. And the value added is that they're going to get a stage and portable, like PA system, so that it can continue. And I think what Pasqualina is really good at is we got that for the first 5 events. So that's like, I think it's Saturdays in April and May. And then she announced that River Valley Co-op donated or contributed funds that would allow that kind of series to continue into the summer and fall. So there is an opportunity, and the ECA is also giving grants to artists, so musicians who would be at that place, 50 Payson, for those events. So they would be active. So I think that's kind of where we would really win, is if there was the idea of some picnic tables and promoting that place for people to end up if they're in Easthampton and can get outside. And it's so unclear what's going to happen in the spring and summer. And we hear about the vaccines, but it doesn't seem like it's happening on the pace that everyone would want. So we really should continue these discussions to be preparing for summer and fall that look like a little bit like last summer and fall.
Okay. In addition, you would like some of us to make an appearance at tomorrow's city council meeting in support of the housing production plan?
Yeah, so after all the effort, this is the big shebang tomorrow. City Council and Planning Board, I'm expecting them to hopefully vote to adopt the housing production plan. And then, so yeah, having the EDIC present and having potentially one person, if that's the ideal scenario, say, this is something that was really important to kind of get under our belts and work on. It's important to note that Councilor Peak submitted the zoning amendment for the accessory dwelling units that could be built with a building permit. So that's making them by right. And then another one that would be for multifamily projects that have affordable units to make those site plan approval, which is a big deal. So we've got the plan getting adopted, and then there's a zoning amendment getting submitted by City Council. So, over the next couple of months, we'll hear about that, and that might be another opportunity for EDIC to come to a couple of meetings and support kind of both of those.
Okay.
So yeah, those are good updates.
Okay. Does anybody in particular want to be our spokesperson? I know, Tom, you're planning to be there. I'm not saying you should be the spokesperson. I'm just saying, who else is going to be there? Is there anybody who wants to be our figurehead there?
I'm going to have a Parks Commission meeting tomorrow, so unfortunately, I will not make
That's
that
okay.
one, which is a real bummer because I really feel a lot about this.
You can live text it. All right. Well, Tom, you or I can talk there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Great. Okay. Is there anything else that has just come to your brain, Jeff, that you'd like to share from planning? All right. So we had talked last time when we had Casey Corsello join us about the Blueprint Easthampton document and the whole project. And we had discussed the idea of EDIC, should it be a resource that's listed there, given that Blueprint Easthampton is meant to support entrepreneurs, small businesses in getting going and in connecting them to wider networks of supports with various elements of what that takes. So I am interested to get into that. I don't know that it's a long conversation. It seems to me that there would have to be something pretty clear that we could state in a one sentence something that says this is what we offer. So I will open this to Mo then to share her thought.
I am not sure that although we are here, our mission is to support and enhance the economic environment for current and future businesses, residents, and the community at large. I'm not really sure what our resource offering would be. I have a little confusion about that. I feel like
Legitimate.
Yeah, I feel like.
Does anybody have thoughts that like it looks to you like EDIC has a thing, a service, a skill that it can offer that other places, that is a complement to other things on offer by nonprofits and grant-making organizations and corporations? Galaxy, Casey.
I would say not necessarily on a case by like an everyday issue, but only on those rare occasions where just an example, say the Dunkin' Donuts situation came up, and there needs to be a roundtable discussion of people who are no longer they're not neighbors, they're not consumers, they're just a general group of business people who could look at what it means as far as zoning, what it means as far as applications, what it means as far as an entrepreneur, where could we steer the help? So I wouldn't say that we could be a resource for everybody, for everything, but there may be a time and a place for certain businesses that I can't even think of right now that we may simply say, you know what, this person is reaching a barrier because there's just one person to talk to or a couple of people to talk to, whereas we as a collective group could be a resource. So I wouldn't be opposed to putting our name on there, but just with, the asterisk that we're not the chamber, which is a little bit more starter up friendly, or the city, the planning department, which is much more like steering you directly towards the path, that we could be just a wild card potential helper. I think that we wouldn't say, no to somebody as much as sort of like, no, we're going to steer you towards somebody else because that's not us. But just potentially when there's, say the cannabis group that wanted to do Tasty Top and somehow we were involved in that conversation, that we could either help them or tell them this is not going to happen. So somehow I think that potentially we could be of use.
I think, Gwen, picking up on what Casey just said, I think where our benefit potentially comes in is in using the Cannabis Northampton Street project as an example, could have been showing up at the meeting, speaking on their behalf or speaking in favor of their project, if we were in fact in favor of it. But I don't know what new business in Easthampton we might not be in favor of. But I think I've heard Jeff say it before. Unfortunately, a lot of these meetings where they're going for approval, the only folks that show up are the ones that are against it. And I think that's where EDIC can lend a helping hand, is show up and speak in support of it. Especially when it's the NIMBY issues, when it's just, we're charged with looking at this more globally and how it benefits the community. And I'm not trying to downplay the effect it can have on neighborhoods or whatever, but I'm not worried about the house next door to the new business. I'm thinking about the benefit to the community as a whole.
So that sounds like it could be summarized as, so far, the thoughts in favor of EDIC being listed as a resource are along the lines of thought partner / advocate.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Are there other thoughts on that?
It looks like Chris, were you going to say? I don't want to interrupt you, Chris.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing that Casey ended up saying. We're good at fixing roadblocks, or at least potentially fixing roadblocks. But I think what Tom said is good too. Well, that seems like it might be a good chamber. Well, then again, if you're not a member of the chamber yet, it's not a good chamber thing. Yeah, I mean, it all sounds good to me.
What about the idea of like helping? So if you're a business and you encounter like a policy issue, or like Chris just said, like a roadblock. So a lot of the roadblocks we see are in zoning. So let's say there's a new business. Let's rewind the tape, and like the cannabis business, let's say we had a different structure and they need a zoning change to succeed in Easthampton. And if EDIC was the resource for like policy or bigger changes that are necessary to accommodate a business, maybe that could be like a good place for EDIC to be a resource. Like the people listed in that resource guide are not going to have any experience with how to change a zoning ordinance to support like a new business. So maybe if there's some way to describe it as kind of assisting with policy changes, or maybe there's some other word in addition to policy, or policy or regulation changes, EDIC would be a really good fit, where a business owner could come to EDIC and be like, I talked to the planning department, but I have this problem. I can't do this without a zoning change. Would EDIC help shepherd or support that kind of request through, a multi-month process? That might be a resource for some people that we, other than the planning department, we don't really have, someone who would do that, or a group that would do that.
And the benefit of that too is that if one business has a problem, there's a lot of them that are potentially having that problem.
Mm. Yeah. And Jeff.
Oh, I'm interested to see what your hand is raised. So I'd like to know, what's your response so far? You're muted.
So a couple of things. One is, the chamber is a resource. Actually, yes, we are a member-driven organization, and that's how we survive. However, as new businesses, they're not chamber members, and our attitude is that we want to help them become successful and sustainable, through their first years of being in business, so they can be a long-term member. And then, and the other thing that I'm wondering too about being an advocate in zoning change, how do we, what's the word I'm trying to think of? What's the criteria for those that fit our mold? Yeah, I'm groping here. So.
No, I think it's an appropriate way of thinking. Is like, so how do you just say that anybody who comes to you with any request for a zoning change, you look at and go, yeah, absolutely, we're definitely going to help you with that. We're just going to charge ahead. So you would need to assume that there's going to be some thoughtful, intentional. consideration of what exactly what is the obstacle here? Is this a reasonable thing for us to take on at a higher level? So that's a fair point. Cassie, did you have something to say?
Me? No.
Yes, you. No?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jeff,
I'll give you one example. I'm not sure if you're familiar with, I'm not sure, I can't remember his name right now. A young man wants to open up a pool hall in town. He got a liquor license from Peter Pan a couple of years ago, and he is just running up to roadblock after roadblock about he wants to put a building across from the East Works, and I don't know if that's a good idea or not. The square footage is not very good. But if he simply had somebody who helped navigate some of the stuff, he's had so many licensing hearings about continuation, about finding the stuff. He's totally frustrated at this point, and it's like, I'm sure if he sat in on one of our meetings, we'd be able to steer him to save some of his time to move forward. So, I think that we can't be everything to everybody. We might be something to somebody.
Could we call
There's a certain amount of. No, go ahead, Cassie.
Sorry. Could we call it barrier analysis and mitigation?
I mean, sure. We can call it whatever we want. I think we want to be clear about what it is, and then we can decide what the labels are that adequately and accurately capture what we think we offer. I like that phrasing for now as things that we would think about. And I'm thinking, I just have a picture in my head of that matrix that's early in the blueprint document that says, here are all these resources, and here's the elements of startup in which they can help you. And so there are certain ones that are ads or marketing, and they can help you with events or something. So what kind of category would we fall into? I'm thinking along those lines as our end point, and before that, yes, along the lines of thought partner. So barrier analysis is a great way of phrasing it, I think, and advocacy to the extent that we find it warranted. Yeah. Josh.
Sounds like we're generally in favor of being part of the Blueprint Easthampton, right?
It does. It sounds like it needs some conceptualizing, but we're leaning that direction.
We just need to be clear about what we can do, and and just be upfront about that we're here to help in any way that we can. But the ways in which we can are somewhat limited.
Because we are a volunteer organization that meets once a month.
True.
But it's this group is one of the only ones devoted to like the idea of economic development in the city. I mean, it's really the only committee devoted to that idea. So I think it's great. I think the EDIC could be listed. I think I understand the case by case, like, you're going to run into it a lot, but like, I think like Casey's example, there are very specific things that you might need to know, but then there's like the global ones. Like, one thing that came up recently is a lot of businesses are closing, and people are taking their businesses home. And our home occupation regulations are not very flexible. So like, and you could imagine like, okay, so you have you have this guy who wants to bring his business home, and he can't because the zoning doesn't allow it. Like, the EDIC is one of the only municipal boards that could potentially understand that, look at the regulations and come to public hearings and say like, this works for everybody. Like, this is a great idea, or especially when you can support it. I don't know about how to get to the parameters of what you decide, but someone could come to you and you might have to say, that's actually kind of not, well, unfortunately we can't help you here. Or someone else might say like, yeah, this is great. Like, loosening up those home occupation regulations makes sense because it would benefit a lot of people. Like, you as a municipal group could go to the planning board meetings and then city council, and you could be that voice of like a municipal board. It won't, you're not going to check too many boxes on that spectrum there, but it is something that you would fill a gap somewhere along the way.
No, Jeff, you're exactly right. Rachel Phillips had an issue, hairdresser on Main Street, and when she went to apply, she was the first hairdresser who applied for home, salons. And she's like, that's crazy. Aren't there already existing? And they were like, yes, there are, but they've never gone through the process of applying. So it's one of those things where it's sort of like, because of the way it was written, they could have denied her. She ended up having to rent parking spaces across the street to fulfill that, because she had a neighbor who was willing to do that. If she didn't, she'd be out of business. And it's
Right. And if she needed, like, if she pursued a zoning change in order to keep her business going, like, she could come to the EDIC, be like, I'm encountering this problem. If you could come to meetings and help us flesh out what the ordinance would say. And, it's basically like 6 or 7 meetings to get a zoning change done, and to have, like, the cannabis one is the good example where we just didn't have that other group, that body or the people to say this is important for Easthampton to consider for X, Y, and Z. So there is a role there.
So I would like to propose that some small group of us, probably not just one person, so if you're interested, please let me know, can craft a little paragraph like, here's what we imagine we would do. It can be bullets, I don't care. And then we can bring that to the rest of the group to say, yeah, go in peace. This sounds like a great way to present ourselves in the Blueprint Easthampton world. That document, talk to Casey Corsello about it, and we could bring that up again at a subsequent meeting, presumably March, and then talk about how we, whether there are other things we can do to make it clear that we are serving that role. We are able to serve in that role regularly anyway. So yeah, let's make it available to people in the Blueprint Easthampton world. And also let's go back to thinking about, how do we tell people we exist and we're useful? It's by my watch 5:14. I have a hard stop in 1 minute. So I would like to encourage us to end this meeting. Any thoughts?
Quick question on the meeting laws. Are we all allowed to collaborate on the same document as a committee? Like, if I were to create a shared document that we all have edit access to, can we all edit it? I don't see why not.
I think we've done that in CPA.
Deliberation.
I'm sorry, Paul?
So there can be no deliberation.
Okay. Hey, Casey, you said you did that in ECA?
Yeah, ECA had a shared document where we worked out terms of an application.
Okay, I'll create a shared document and I'll send it out to you guys. And
Thanks, Chris.
yeah, I'll just say what to do.
Thank you.
And Chris, it sounds like you also volunteered to send out the link to tomorrow's city council meeting to anybody who's interested in attending. Thanks. Okay, Casey.
Quick congratulations to Mo with her new dog, and Josh, if you stop those damn grandchild pictures. I'm so jealous.
Mo, is it a beagle? Is it a beagle, Mo?
No,
it's a she's a shepherd mix.
Nice.
She's adorable.
She's white. She's beautiful. But she's a lot of dog. She's 52 pounds of joy coming at you, and I'm like, oh my God.
Casey, I'm not jealous of the Josh grandchild pictures. I'm jealous of the Josh 20 years ago pictures.
Oh yeah.
40 years ago.
40 years ago.
I am too.
He had hair.
He had hair.
Oh boy. All right. So thank you for bringing some humanity back to this.
I propose we adjourn.
I second.
Hold on. I got one last thing. I got.
Okay.
Paul, tell us.
I got an email from the mayor. I think a few of you did, about something that the Falmouth EDIC does to. It's like a program for subsidizing energy costs for low-income people. Anyway, the mayor had suggested she may want to come and talk to us about it in a future meeting. So I want to just give everybody a heads up on that. It might be something that she wants to do next month.
Great. If that communication happens further, let me know, and I'll make sure that we've got space for that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll let you know.
Okay. Thanks. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
I'm just going to look at you. Look positive about it. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Meeting adjourned.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.